존경하는 각국 정상, 내외 기빈, 천일국 지도자, 사랑하는
Respected
축발 여러분,
excellencies,
안녕하세요.
dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, leaders of Chonilguk.
오늘
Good morning,
역사적인
everyone. Today we are attending
신통일세계
the
안착을 위한
third rally of hope for the realization of a heavenly unified world. My name is Bang Seung-man, Senior Director of FFWPU International Headquarters. I'm very pleased to meet you.
이번 전진대회는
Today's rally of hope is taking place online, and for the sake of the victory of today's victory, please everyone take into account the necessary preventive measures, continue wearing your masks and keeping social distancing. Today's rally has been adjusted to start 30 minutes earlier, and today's rally will be a special concert of gratitude to really thank Korea for its blessing. Thank you for your understanding and your participation. We would like to test the audio one more time. Can you hear the MC well? Can you hear the interpreter? Please wave your hands if you can hear the interpretation or the sound from the field. Today's event is being interpreted into 8 languages: Korean, Japanese, English, Spanish, French, Chinese, Portuguese, and Thai. And before we begin today's rally, I would like to briefly introduce today's program. First, we will have an opening program with an opening video, and after that, we will have the peace offering, then the peace messages, and we will have the offering of the floral tribute. We'll have the congratulatory remarks, welcoming remarks, keynote addresses, as well as the founder's special address, the special concert by the Little Angels, and that will be divided into 2 parts, part 1 and 2, and then there will be an offering of flowers, a floral tribute by the Korean War veterans. And at this time, we would like to begin the third rally of hope for the realization of a heavenly unified world on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War. This rally of hope series aims to promote the realization of a world of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. May this become a precious occasion where we really remember the past sacrifices by the Korean War veterans, but also lay a new beginning for the future, to lay a future of hope for future generations. Please join me as we begin today's program with the opening video.
In the flower of your youth, you set foot in this land for the first time. As your steps brought you to the battlefield, you engraved and kept in your mind the faces of your loved ones. Enduring painful days of hellish war, caught between life and death, sometimes in fear, seeing your fellow comrades fall, and leaving your blood and sweat in an unknown land. Until the end you defended Korea, and you are remembered as heroes. June 25th, 1950. The United Nations Allied forces crossed the 155-mile demarcation line on the 38th parallel, dividing north from south, sacrificing their lives in unrelenting battle in a bid to bring Korea the gift of freedom. After the adoption of the United Nations Security Council resolution, the brave men of the Allied forces under the command of General Douglas MacArthur threw themselves unreservedly into the rain of fire that fell upon them. In support of the South Korean army came soldiers from Greece, South Africa, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Luxembourg, Belgium, Ethiopia, the United States, Great Britain, Australia, Canada, Colombia, Turkey, Thailand, the Philippines and France under the United Nations command, Denmark, Germany, Norway, Italy, India and Sweden provided medical support to heal the war wounded. And 41 other countries around the world sent needed supplies to South Korea, which had been stripped bare by war. Once war broke out, it seemed that no one would escape the carnage. The long days of war saw 600,000 Korean military casualties, with more than 500,000 from the UN forces killed or wounded. The blood of 2 million Korean citizens stained the valleys and mountains. The bodies of some 150,000 soldiers killed in action that could not be repatriated are remembered with the blossoming of the flowers each spring. Though their voices are silent, their names are remembered with respect.
It was very sad to see them, and yet I think it was in a good cause for the liberation of South Korea, for the prevention of the North Korean communists and the Chinese communists, and perhaps even the Russians from overwhelming the Korean peninsula and bringing disaster to the Far East.
Under such protection, Korea has flourished, owing to the courage of heroic men and women who sought to safeguard its freedom, the courage of those who made the final sacrifice. Korea now shines brightly in the world. Marking the 60th anniversary of the start of the war, in 2010, Dr. and Mrs. Sun Myung Moon donated $10 million to the veterans of the UN forces that had protected this land, symbolically repaying the love these veterans had for Korea. And on behalf of the Republic, they sent the Little Angels Performing Arts Troupe to their countries as an expression of gratitude. In 4 separate tours covering 22 countries, the Little Angels took the spirit of Korea to the world. They performed for 5,000 dignitaries, met 16,000 Korean war veterans and their relatives, and through their lively performances showed them and tens of thousands of other citizens that the veterans' sacrifices had not been in vain. With their love, the Little Angels held close to their hearts the names of those who had protected their homeland 60 years earlier. Their very first stop was the graves of all those who had given their lives protecting Korea. The Little Angels engraved in their hearts these glimpses of the lives of these good men. They expressed their gratitude for the unconditional sacrifices these men had made long before they were born. They are aware that the peace Korea enjoys today is a gift they gave, and that their happy lives today result from the love shown to their country many years before. Many veterans lost their close friends and comrades in arms, and some have had to spend their lives in wheelchairs, yet they expressed their warm affection and encouragement to these little angels who came from the land where they had given their blood and sweat decades before.
Most important thing, you know how to smile. 60 years ago, the children of Korea were not smiling, but you are. And we are very, very proud to have met you. Thank you very, very much.
Just knowing that in the small country in the Far East, where they had risked their lives, that young people like these little girls are growing up in freedom, filled their hearts with joy. However, the little angels also encountered veterans who had been marginalized, neglected, and forgotten. They had risked everything for peace, but had fallen on hard times. Going through hardships, some even selling their medals for a few dollars just to buy food, perhaps the most fearful thing for them was to be forgotten. Through the Little Angels tour, such people came to light, and the Little Angels testified to the sacrifices they had made. This created the driving force for them to rediscover their lives.
소비는 대한국 해방시키는데 도움을 수 있었던 것에 대해서 항상 자랑스럽게 생각하고 있습니다.
The Little Angels also played the role of diplomats, helping cement high-level friendships. And nations' leaders responded warmly and welcomed Korea's heart of never forgetting their support.
Orada hep şöyle dediler. Dediler ki Türklerle biz kan kardeşiyiz. Çok doğrusu memnun oldum. Tabii 60 yıl önce Kore'ye giden Türkiye'den çok binlerce subayımız, askerimiz oldu. Ama işte o büyük bir dostluk ve yakınlık, kardeşlik doğurdu.
The flutter of angel wings for those who had come to meet the young angels were the angels' way of saying thank you to those who had fought for and guarded peace, an expression of the freedom South Korea enjoys today.
UN forces fought as though they were defending their own country. Without their sacrifices, today we would have no freedom, no democracy, and no prosperity. Millions of children, like the little angels you see tonight, would never have grown up happy like they are today.
Through the fan dance, the Little Angels showed the beauty of Korean culture. Through the doll dance, they expressed warm gratitude. As they sang and danced vigorously, they gave the best gift to those that had waited for so long. These young girls' pure performances healed the hearts of those who were hurting, who were touched and delighted. The lovely little angels brought hope and peace of mind. The little angels found here the heroes of the Korean War and sang songs that spoke of peace, and through their voices and delicate dance expressed their hearts of thanks. Dr. Sun Myung-moon and Dr. Hak Jahan-moon have led a movement for world peace and shared their ideas on peace with people all over the world. The little angels represented that vision as they represented their country.
Thanks to every mother's son who fought for each and every one, showing that, despite the pain, their valiant efforts were not in vain.
Y en un futuro muy próximo podamos acariciar la noticia de esa reunificación que en tanto esperamos los veteranos los veteranos, porque nosotros que estuvimos en el frente de batalla decimos siempre y sentimos que a los coreanos para nosotros son hermanos en la guerra y ahora hermanos en la paz.
At the age of 98, I remain hopeful for peace and eventual reunification of the two Koreans.
Yet the Republic of Korea, however, is still divided north and south. Since long ago, Dr. and Mrs. Moon have prepared their worldwide foundation to assist with the reunification of the two Koreas. In 1990, they encouraged Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev on his path of reform, and the following year they visited North Korea and met with North Korean leader Kim Il-sung. They embraced him wholeheartedly despite everything, putting their lives on the line to maintain peace between the Koreas and ultimately to see them as one nation again.
우리는 50여년 동안 전심전력을 다해 국내외의 두의 사상과 하나님주의를 중심한 이념운동을 토대로 통일의 기반을 조성해왔습니다. 우리 다 같이 참사랑의 하나님주의로 우리의 가치관을 정립하고 국민 사상 무장의 총골게 합시다.
Amid the rivalry between the powers surrounding the Korean peninsula and the North Korean nuclear crisis, still we can take the peaceful path of unification under the true values that Dr. and Mrs. Moon have championed. The path of interdependence, mutual prosperity and universal values. The Peace Road project has highlighted the way. It is a great initiative to foster reconciliation. The idea to build a fifth UN office in Korea is stimulating many to consider Korean unification. And an active movement to prepare for the era of a unified Korea is gaining momentum. A vision lighting this era with rays of genuine hope. The goal of the work Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon is leading is to see the two Koreas as one nation again.
섭리의 완성 시대에 있어서 이 민족이 나가야 할 길은 무엇이겠습니까? 남북 통일 좋습니다. 그러나 이 민족이 해야 될 것은 하늘 부모님을 모시는 길이 우선입니다. 이 길만이 영전하신 하늘 부모님을 모신 우리 인류가 영전하는 길임을 명심하시며 나와 함께 하늘 부모님을 모신 인류 한 가족 평화 세계를 이뤄 나가 주시기를 간구하며 축원하는 바입니다.
Hope for the realization of a heavenly unified world. In a time of an unfinished war, we cannot fully enjoy today. But like those who came together to protect Korea 70 years ago, peace-loving citizens from around the world are coming together now, uniting and sharing for the establishment of a heavenly unified Korea. The final walls of ideological division must come down. The nation of Korea that has been blessed by God never takes for granted the grace that it received. A unified Korea will bring hope for a unified world. We are grateful for this grace and will never forget those who fought on our behalf. They will be forever remembered in history. This day shall be remembered as a great day. Today, Korea is taking a big step forward to the realization of a peaceful, unified world.
피지 못한 젊음의 꽃망울이여, 당신은 살아남은 자들의 영웅입니다. 평화, 희망, 신통일세계 안착을 위한 희망 전진대회, 그 안착을 위한 카운트다운을 시작하겠습니다. 신아시아 태평양, 신중남미, 신유럽, 신아프리카, 신미국, 신일본 함께하겠습니다.
We are all together.
신한국 이뤄내겠습니다. 함께 사는 세상,
Interdependence.
더불어 이루겠습니다.
Mutual prosperity.
함께 바라는 신통일세계,
Universal values.
평화, 희망,
Now
신통일세계
the time for
안착을
hope
위하여
and peace is beginning.
Respected Excellencies, distinguished readers, beloved 천일국 leaders, blessed family and ambassador for peace, especially Korean War veterans and families attending today's Rally of Hope. My name is Yoon Young-ho, Director General of Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, and co-chairman of the organizing committee for today's rally. I'll be your MC for today's historic third rally of hope for the realization of a heavenly unified world. I'm very pleased to meet you. Thank you so much for attending today's rally. First of all, I would like to begin by welcoming you all to this rally of hope to firmly establish a heavenly unified world through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. Today's third rally of hope commemorates the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War, and we have prepared a concert of gratitude for the nation and veterans who fought in this holy war. Over 2 million peace-loving leaders and citizens from 194 nations around the world are joined live here at Cheongshin Peace World Center from Korea, Japan, USA, Asia Pacific, Europe, Africa, and Latin America. Furthermore, more than 200 million leaders and citizens around the world are also watching today's event through various national broadcasts and other platforms in all regions of the world. I would like to welcome once again everyone attending today's Rally of Hope. Let us give a big round of applause for everyone. Thank you. 환영합니다. Welcome. 관계 이타시마스. Bienvenidos. Bienvenida. Whining. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to be a challenge for all citizens around the world. Today's world is characterized by despair more than hope, suffering more than happiness, conflict and discord more than harmony. The past two rallies of hope provide the world with a light of hope coming from realizing a unified world centered on heavenly parents. 2.5 million global citizens attended for the first rally, and more than 200 million people watched the rally through 188 broadcasters. 2 million global citizens attending the second Rally of Hope. Over 300 million people watched it live through 259 broadcasters. I believe that the reason 2 rallies of hope could provide a new right of hope to the whole world is because of the common desire and hope to realizing last peace together under the umbrella of Heavenly Parents' holy community. Let us give a big round of applause to show our gratitude to the founder, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon. Thank you. Peace-loving eminent excellencies and leaders and global citizens from all around the world are transcending time and space to be here with us today. Furthermore, Korean War veterans are here with us as well. Before we begin today's event, let us briefly greet the online participants who have joined us live. Let us meet the honorable participant representing ISCP, IAPP, IAPD, IMAP, IAED, IAAP. Here are the honorable participants from all regions. Let us welcome them with a big round of applause. Welcome. And thank you. Next, let us connect with all regions. Let us first connect with Heavenly Korea. 먼저 신한국을
Heavenly Korea
연결해
leaders,
보도록
bless
하겠습니다.
families and all
신한국의
Korean
지도자
veterans
그리고
from Korea.
그리고 오늘
Good
역사적인
morning.
대회에
I am
함께하고
very
계신
pleased to meet you.
한국전쟁 참전용사
Welcome
여러분
you
안녕하세요.
all.
정말 반갑습니다. 환영합니다. 오늘 한국전쟁
As we reflect
70주년
over the
보험
meaning of
공연을
today's
듣지만
rally, which is
대회의
hosted
의미를
centered on the
생각하며
Little
제가
Angels'
하나,
performance of
둘,
gratitude
셋 이렇게
for the
하면
70th anniversary of the
한국전쟁을
Korean
위해
War,
목숨을 바쳐
I would like to
희생하신
ask you
우리
at the count of 3
참전용사들에게
to say
감사합니다.
감사합니다, 사랑합니다,
사랑합니다라고 하시면서
while
이렇게
making a big
큰
heart
하트를
as an
작은 하트
opportunity,
말고 큰 하트를
a big
한번
heart
이렇게
as an
그려주시면
opportunity to
좋겠습니다.
express our
준비되셨습니까?
gratitude to all Korean War veterans who
하나,
sacrificed for Korea.
둘,
Are you
셋.
ready?
감사합니다. 사랑합니다. 네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
Next is Heavenly Japan.
Good morning to you all, leaders and blessed families of Heavenly Japan. I am truly happy to be here with you all. As we reflect over the meaning of today's rally, I would like to ask you all to join me at the count of 3 to say 감사합니다, 사랑합니다 to all veterans and heroes who died fighting in the Korean War by waving both arms. Are you ready? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Lastly, let us briefly greet and interview some of the Korean War veterans attending today's event. I would like to interview Ethiopian Korean War veterans from the Gangnew Battalion. Good morning. To begin with, I'd like to appreciate your dedication on behalf of the Korean people. I want to ask, what is your reflection about your participation in the Korean War and about UPF and its founder?
First, we did not know anything about the Korean War because at that time we were just going to school. Then we began hearing the rumor that Ethiopia would send troops to Korea. And when the time came, we went to Korea because it had been invaded by the North. Furthermore, since North Korea did not accept the proposed UN agreement between the two Koreas, our mission was to push back North Korean forces to their positions. As Ethiopian forces, we did our best to honor our country during the various fights. I know Dr. and Mrs. Moon very well. Throughout their lives, they have always sought for peace. That is why they founded UPF. Ethiopia believes in and has been seeking for peace. Dr. and Mrs. Moon have been doing the same. This is something we must appreciate and be grateful to them for. I remember how Dr. and Mrs. Moon sent the Little Angels in 2010 to honor all Korean War veterans throughout the world. This is something we should always remember and be grateful for. Today, once again, Mother Moon has shown through her love for the Ethiopian veterans that she did not forget our sacrifices. We are so grateful to Mother Moon. 사랑합니다, 어머님.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your dedication and interview. Respected readers, let us give a big round of applause to welcome everyone attending today's historic rally once again. I'd like to welcome once again everyone. Today's rally of hope is taking place in Korea, and from now on the event will be hosted in Korean. Translation is provided in 9 languages. Please select your preferred language. 존경하는 각국 정상 및 내외 귀빈,
distinguished
천재
leaders
용사 여러분.
and veterans.
지금 전 세계는 지난
Beloved
1월부터
families,
본격적으로 시작된
More than 9
코로나
months have
바이러스
passed since the
팬데믹의 영향으로
COVID-19 pandemic
9개월이
began
지난
in
지금도
earnest in
정치,
January.
종교, 경제 등
Its harmful
전
effects can be
방위적
felt in
분야의
all
심각한
sectors of
피해와
society,
후유증을 앓고 있으며
including
전
politics,
세계
religion, and
시민들은 여전히
economic
개인적으로,
grounds.
가정적으로,
People now live
국가적으로
in fear,
고립된
uncertainty,
생활하며
and isolation as
두려움과 공포
individuals,
속의
families,
일상적
and
생활을
nations.
영위하고 있습니다.
They long for their lives
그러나 이러한 초유의
to
위기를
return
함께
to
극복해야 함에도 불구하고 국가
Despite the urgent
이기주의에
need to
기반한
work together
자기
to overcome
국가와
this
자기 국민의
unprecedented crisis,
생존만을
there
중시하는
is a
풍조는
trend toward
화합과
nationalism,
상생보다는
to only think
분열과
of the survival
갈등으로
of
점철된
one's nation
세계로
and
향하게 하고
citizens.
있습니다.
We
이런
are
이유에서
heading toward a
문선명
world
한학자
marked by
총재님
division and
양이분
conflict rather
참
than
부모님께서는
harmony and
분열과
coexistence.
갈등으로
For
점철된
this reason,
인간 불행
Reverend Dr.
역사의
Sung Myung Moon
근원을
and Dr. Hakja
부자지
Han-moon,
인연으로 대변되는 인류의
founders of
근본
Heavenly
부모
Parents,
되시는
Holy
하나님을
Community of the
하늘
Universal Peace
부모님으로 모실
Federation
때
and Family
더불어
Federation
함께 잘
have said
사는
that the source of
공생,
all human
공영,
unhappiness and the
공의가
division and
실현된
conflict that
항구적인
make up
평화의
our
통일세계,
history
다시
are
말해
due not
신통일
to
세계가
our not
가능함을
serving God
주창하셨으며
as our parent,
특별히 참
when we
어머님께서는
thank God, our
지난 두
heavenly
번의
parent,
희망 전진 대회를
an
통해
eternal world
전
of
세계
peace where
수십억
all
명의
live in
사람들에게 이
harmony
평화의
through
비전의
interdependence, mutual
선비를
prosperity, and
밝히셨습니다.
universal values
그리고 오늘은
is possible.
전 세계
They
유일한
have emphasized
한국의
the ideal
6.25
of one
전쟁
family
70주년을
under
기념하는
Heavenly Parent throughout
분열을
heaven
잊지 않는 대한민국,
is realized,
신통일 한국, 신통일
and when we
세계로라는 주제로
give up extreme
세 번째
selfishness,
희망
we can
전진
realize a
대회를
world
시작하게
of peace. respected excellencies, distinguished leaders, and veterans. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the Korean War, which broke out on June 25, 1950. The sacrifice and commitment of each veteran from the 22 nations, including the United States, have become the cornerstone of freedom, peace, equality, and happiness in today's Republic of Korea. 138,000 South Korean soldiers were killed, 450,000 wounded, and 225,000 missing in the Korean War. As many as 1 million civilians were killed or injured, and 80% of the industrial infrastructure was destroyed. The war was an unforgettable war between people of one race, a national crisis, and a deep scar. Koreans went through the sadness of losing their country and the joy of seeing it liberated. The Korean War was harsh and broke out at a time when South Korea was still without any established system. Under God's grace, 10 hours after the war began on June 25, 1950, the United Nations Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution condemning the North and authorizing the very first United Nations command to restore peace on the Korean peninsula. The United Nations gathered their forces for Korea, a small country that was unknown and had nothing to show for. Reverend Moon and Mrs. Moon, our true parents, therefore called this war that was carried out with 63 countries a holy war. Just as the lyrics in the Korean national anthem, "Heaven watched over our land forever, our Korea manse," explained that this was a holy war. That is why on the 60th anniversary of the Korean War, Reverend and Dr. Moon sent the Little Angels Troop, which they founded and raised, to 22 nations to conduct performances of gratitude to comfort all Korean War veterans who put their lives on the line to fight in the Korean War. And they placed $10 million towards this cause. The performance was conducted under the theme, "Korea that will never forget the blessing it received." In commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the Korean War and the 10th anniversary of the Little Angels tour to 22 countries, this third rally of hope is being held under the slogan, "Korea has not forgotten the blessing it received." Today, we have invited veterans from across the country, and they are currently taking part in special luncheons and also various online events while watching today's online rally. Beloved leaders, the war, however, is not over yet. We are still in a ceasefire and the Korean War did not finish. Scars from the war still remain over all the country and still very much affect the lives and history of individuals and families. Because of this, the Korean people must never forget that they are the sons and daughters of the Korean War veterans or war refugees. Therefore, Dr. Hak Jae-moon is determined to realize a new heavenly unified Korea that is centered on Heavenly Parent by 2022 and realize a heavenly unified world by 2027. Next year in particular marks the 30th anniversary of the historic visit of Dr. Moon and Dr. Hak Jae-moon to North Korea and their meeting with that nation's leader Kim Il-sung, the purpose of which was to find a way to initiate the reunification of North and South Korea. Next year, centering on Family Federation's True Family Movement and UPF's Headwing Movement for Unification, we are preparing to host another 6 rallies of hope for the realization of a heavenly unified Korea and also World Summit 2021 for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula while promoting cooperation between the two Koreas. Therefore, by 2022, we hope to be able to heal the wounds of the Korean War left on the Korean Peninsula and lay the foundation for a heavenly unified Korea. By moving into this direction, I believe we will be able to truly repay the kindness Korea received back to the world as we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Korean War. Let us begin today's rally with a warm round of applause. Now, let us begin the third rally of hope with a warm round of applause.
순서는 피스 오퍼링, 평화 축원식의 순서입니다. 피스 오퍼링은 신통일 세계 안착의 염원을 담은 초종교 합수식과 고천문 낭독으로 진행하겠습니다. 근본 희망전진대 피스 오퍼링은 전 세계 7개 대륙과 세계의 종단들을 대표해 신일본의 7대 종단 대표자들께서 함께 해주셨습니다. 신도의 물의 토쿠슈 제주, 신도의 나라타이슈 신궁 최고위 궁사, 불교의 히가시 왕고 청행암 주지, 기독교의 미야하라 토오루 목사, 기독교의 카와카미 요시오 목사, 무슬림의 후미움 무갈 회장, 그리고 하늘부모님 세계평화통일가정연합회 방상일 회장. 먼저 초종교 합수식을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 사회자의 구령에 맞춰 합수를 해주시면 좋겠습니다. 하나, 둘, 셋, 합수!
Next, Reverend Bang Sang-il from Heavenly Japan will read the Declaration of Peace to Heaven. Our Almighty Heavenly Parent, the Creator of heaven, earth, and humankind, you created the first human ancestors for the sake of an eternal world of peace and prosperity. Today, we know that the world is still suffering due to division, discord, and conflicts around the world. And finally, our beloved True Mother has come to proclaim the establishment of a unified world of peace and given us the blessing of becoming treasures of heaven, families who can live according to heaven's tradition. As families who are blessed by heaven, we will become a firm cornerstone of peace for nations around the world and establish a tradition of living for the sake of others throughout the world. We shall become lights of hope in a world of despair. On the foundation of the victories of the two previous rallies, we are now attending today's third rally of hope. Please bless all of the gallant and heroic men and women who gave their lives in defense of Korea's freedom, peace, and democracy. We would like to really offer our homage and gratitude to the veterans and their families for making today's Korea possible. Furthermore, we are grateful to the UN forces for helping save the lives of Koreans, including Reverend Moon and Mrs. Moon. On this special day, we all wish for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, and also we pray for the unity of Korea, Japan, and America to establish a heavenly continent and a Pacific Rim civilization of peace. Today, as we are all united, we put our hearts of prayer together and offer our wish of peaceful reunification before heaven. Please accept our wish for reunification. Thank you very much. Next, we would like to have a peace anthem. Everyone, please rise and let us wish for a world of lasting peace through the peace anthem. Thank you very much, everyone. Please take your seats. Next will be the peace message and prayer. And this is Nasaruddin Umar, the Grand Imam of Indonesia, the most respected and highest leader in the Indonesian Muslim community, will give the peace message and offer a prayer for the realization of a world of peace. As a representative Muslim leader of Indonesia, Grand Imam Umar is currently serving as the Grand Imam of the Istiqlal National Mosque of Indonesia in Jakarta. He also served as Vice Minister of Religions from 2011 to 2014. Let us welcome the Grand Imam Umar with a warm round of applause.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nasaruddin Umar, Grand Imam of Istiqlal National Mosque of Indonesia. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the Almighty God, Universal Federation and co-founder of UKE, Dr. Jahan, for the wonderful initiative to this really of hope. The world is at stake, and therefore we must stand together to give hope to the world. Peace among religion is a foundation for world peace. We are all part, regardless of background we come from. To fulfill our portion of responsibility in our sphere, to humble ourselves, respect, love, and love for others, as a fulfill our purpose. For which God created us to build a world for lasting peace and earth. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, Hamd al-Shakirin, Hamd al-Na'min, Hamd yuwafi ni'amahu wa yukafi mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika al-karim wa fi sultanik. Allahumma salli wa sallim alayhi. Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Allahumma ya Allah irhamna ya arhamar rahimin ya Allah. Rabbana ighfir lana dhunubana wa israfana fi amrina wa thabbit aqdamana wa ansurna 'alal qawmil kafirin. Allahumma la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmah innaka antal wahhab. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-huda wa tuqa wal afafa wal ghina. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
A cry from the silence, the wings of life, endlessly reaching out toward our true home. A new light comes to the darkness, clothing the grayness with new life. Ah, who is this? It is they who still reach out in loneliness. Ah, who is this? It is they who first gave the cry of victory. Ah, a cry from the silence. Ah, the wings of eternal life.
Together we'll build a world that's new, that's fit for kings and fit for queens. I greet all men with a loving heart. I'll speak the truth with a clear voice.
역사적인 성전 한국 전쟁에 참전했던 참전국 22개국, 물자 지원국 41개국, 총 63개국가를 대표하는 기수단이 입장하고 있습니다. 대한민국의 자유와 평화를 위해 한국 전쟁이 있은 지 70주년이 되는 역사적인 해, 국경과 인종, 문화와 종교를 넘어 대한민국의 자유와 평화를 위해 참전했던 22개국 유엔 참전
22 nations came to help protect Korea's freedom, democracy. Their sacrifices and gallantry in the face of war made today's Korea possible. As we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War, we cannot forget the history of the sacrifices, the dedication, but especially the importance of the gallant efforts played by the veterans. Next, we will now offer floral tributes to commemorate and remember the Korean War veterans. The first floral tributes will be given by ambassadors, consular representatives, and attachés of nations that participated in the Korean War. Honorable Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Ethiopia, Shifero Shigute Wolasa, and his wife. From Thailand, the Thailand Air Attaché, Captain Tana Tipawase. The Consul Maria Liza Viejo of the Philippines. The Bolivian Consul Ronald Jose Iriarte. And from Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leonean Vice Ambassador Dr. Joe Favia Numa. These are the representatives of nations who came to the assistance of Korea. Let us put our hearts together as the representatives of the various nations offer their floral tributes. Thank you very much. The second floral tribute will be offered by representative veterans and leaders of the Korean War Veterans Association. Lee Sun-min, Chair of the UN Peace Corps, Reverend Yoo Jae-shik, President of the Korean War Veterans Association, and Reverend Kang Gu-gon, Mr. Kim Soo-won-woo, Mr. Lee Young-hee, Mr. Lee Jae-yoon, Mr. Park Hyung-jun, and Mr. Lee Chun-se. Thank you. The third floral tribute will be offered by 10 religious leaders representing people of faith all over the world. Reverend Kim Suman, Reverend Igi Song, Venerable Chi Won, the Chairman Kim Dong-wook, the Venerable Kang Dae-bong, Chairman Yang Yeon-ho, and also Mr. Shin Hye-won, Chair Lee Chang-gu, and the Venerable Sang San, and Chairman Im Bu-hee. 10 religious leaders representing all of the various faiths around the world are offering their floral tributes. Thank you very much. The fourth floral tribute will be offered by Cheonilguk leaders Dr. Moon Yeon-ha, Dr. Julia Moon, Mrs. Wonju McDevitt, Dr. Yoon Young-ho, Reverend Yoon Jong-no, Reverend Chu Jin-tae, Reverend Hwang Bo-guk, Reverend Yu Kyung-duk, Reverend Lee Sang-jae, and Reverend Hwa Kyung-bae. 9 leaders will offer their floral tributes. Thank you very much. We really are grateful for paying tribute to the fallen patriots and veterans. Next, we would like to offer a moment of silence in honor of all of the Korean War veterans. Everyone, please rise. Let us all offer a moment of silence for the veterans. Thank you very much. Everyone, please take your seats. Once again, thank you for paying homage to the war veterans. Next, we will have the welcoming addresses for the Rally of Hope. The welcoming addresses will be offered by 2 very special people. The first welcoming address will be offered by Dr. Thomas Walsh, Chair of the Universal Peace Federation. For 15 years since the founding of the Universal Peace Federation, Dr. Thomas Walsh has been working wholeheartedly and selflessly to substantialize the peace ideology of the founders. Let us welcome Dr. Thomas Walsh.
It is my high honor and privilege to share a few words with you at the outset of this third Rally of Hope. I'm deeply grateful to the leadership and wise guidance of Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon and to the many eminent and very distinguished leaders who will deliver keynote addresses today. The Rally of Hope series is sponsored by the Universal Peace Federation and is dedicated to building a unified world of peace. Its impact is being felt in every corner of the world. Today's rally, being viewed by millions, commemorates the 70th anniversary of the Korean War and honors those veterans who served during that conflict, which is sometimes known as the Forgotten War. It is estimated that the war caused 3 million fatalities and brought about the complete devastation of the infrastructure of the peninsula. Indeed, without the intervention of the United Nations Security Council that set up a security command consisting of a 16-nation peace force, the Republic of Korea would no doubt have fallen permanently. Many Korean families are still tragically separated by the 38th parallel. Many died without ever being reunited with their loved ones. Please understand, however, this Rally of Hope series is not merely reflecting on the suffering of the past. On the contrary, this Rally of Hope is part of UPF's global effort to establish peace on the Korean Peninsula, guided by the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. This Rally of Hope works to inspire and build a global alliance across all continents dedicated to the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula and the creation of a peaceful, unified world. Toward this end, we are building a global coalition of stakeholders and peace builders representing governments, religions, civil society, business, the media, and academia, working together hand in hand with one heart and one goal: to overcome the barriers that divide us in order to create one universal family under God. Throughout 2020, UPF chapters around the world have been convening hundreds of programs toward this end. Over the next 2 years, these programs will increase dramatically. We need your help. Indeed, let us work to fulfill the very hope of God, our Heavenly Parent. Please join us. Let us work together. Thank you very much.
The second welcoming address will be delivered by President George Weah of Liberia. President George Weah is a world-renowned superstar, not just in the field of soccer, but also in politics. He played in various incredible teams for 14 years from 1988, such as Paris Saint-Germain, AC Milan, Chelsea, Man City, and Marseille. He was also the African Footballer of the Year in 1989, 94, 95, and 96, and won the Ballon d'Or and FIFA World Player of the Year awards in 1995. President Weah showed great talent not only in soccer but also in politics, entering the political world in 2014 as the Senator of Montserrado County. He was elected as the 25th President in 2017 through his outstanding political sense and deep dedication to the people of Liberia. From the late 2000s, President Weah has shown great sympathy for the peace vision of Reverend Sun Myung-moon and Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon and is working closely with UPF. Let us welcome His Excellency President Weah of Liberia with a warm round of applause.
Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I extend warm greetings on behalf of the government and people of the Republic of Liberia and in my own name to the people of Korea and to viewers in nations around the world who have joined this rally of hope dedicated to the peaceful reunification of Korea. It is an honor for me to have been invited to share a few words with you today. For this important occasion, Korea has been a divided nation since the beginning of the Korean War many years ago. My own country, Liberia, and several others countries in the West African region have known the suffering, the destruction, and the devastation caused by war and division. And that is why we cherish peace and pray that all peoples of the world will be able to live peacefully together and enjoy the promise and prosperity of peace. It is my fervent hope and prayer that soon there will be a reunification of Korea. Many lives were lost during the Korean War, including soldiers from throughout the world. For their sake, we should all strive for peace and unification so that their ultimate sacrifice will not be in vain. I now salute the Universal Peace Federation, which is a leading force for peace in today's world. It has taken initiatives through conferences and summits dedicated to peace. I can recall with gratitude that the Universal Peace Federation has worked in Liberia after our Civil War by taking part in post-conflict peace-building efforts with the Liberian legislature, of which I was then a senator of Masorado County. It is therefore with great pleasure that I find myself today in the position to participate in the current rally of hope. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to express my gratitude to the creator of the Universal Peace Federation, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, who is a courageous champion for peace through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. I believe the Universal Peace Federation stands in a central position to help resolve the crisis on the Korean Peninsula. Among other things, I know that the Universal Peace Federation understands the importance of interreligious dialogue and has been a strong supporter and partner in supporting the work of the United Nations, the African Union, and ECOWAS. I welcome the involvement of the Universal Peace Federation in my country. The partnership between government and civil society is extremely important as we work to address problems of poverty, food security, economic development, education, and strengthening the family. I want to emphasize once again the importance of peace. We are living through challenging times. If we work together, we can make a difference, and we can achieve the great hope for peace that the people of the world long for and deserve. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give another big round of applause to His Excellency President George Weah of Liberia in appreciation for his moving, welcoming address. Right now, all around the world, many people are participating with us today this is not just the MC speaking, but around the world, 276 stations and channels are broadcasting today's Rally of Hope. And also the South American leaders have mentioned that in El Salvador, which was a nation that provided material support, the president of the Legislative Assembly of El Salvador is speaking today. And in Mexico and Honduras, they're all watching today's event live. And today's event is being broadcast in the National Assembly of El Salvador. And when they see really this event being broadcast live, it is truly amazing that across the world, people are really transcending time and space and really are combined with us in this important occasion. Next, we will have two congratulatory addresses. Two eminent leaders will offer congratulatory addresses. The first is the former U.S. Representative Charles Rangel, who is a veteran of the Korean War and a prominent U.S. statesman. Former U.S. Representative Charles Rangel was born in 1930, became a politician in 1971, and served as a U.S. Congressman of New York for 46 years until 2017. And he is the second longest serving representative in the U.S. Congress. He received the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star Medal for his bravery in the Battle of Chongchong River, despite being injured during the fight. And also, while in office as a representative, he served as the first African-American chairman of the Committee of Ways and Means, and he is a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus. In particular, Honorable Charles Rangel is in deep sympathy with the peace vision of true parents and has continued to actively work as an ambassador for peace. Let us welcome Representative Charles Rangel, a Korean War veteran and a true statesman, with a warm round of applause.
I want to especially thank Mother Moon for the sacrifices she had made to bring the parliamentarian and religious leaders, world leaders together to pause and to pray and to work toward peace. And especially my dear friend, Dan Burton, who I served with in the United States House of Representatives. But this is especially important, not only for the world and the United States of America, for me personally, that you have selected this war in Korea. And I hesitate to say war because in June of 1950, I served in the Army with the 2nd Infantry Division, and we were advised by our Commander-in-Chief, President Harry Truman, that the United Nations were going to, not to war, but to a police action to stop the invasion of the communists into South Korea. Most of us had no idea as to what that meant. But I can tell you this, we went from Busan to the Naktong to the 38th parallel, past Pyongyang, and we stayed on the borders of the Yalu River. To our complete surprise, we were surrounded by tens of thousands of Chinese. It was a massacre, and only a handful of the soldiers in my unit were able to survive it. Some were captured, others wounded, but many of us were just left dead. Annually, we would communicate with each other, and as the years passed by, our number dwindled. And why this is important is because so many of you have come together not to talk about war, but to lay down the swords and to talk about peace. Because as we talked about November 30th, it was a nightmare. Nobody who ever witnessed tens of thousands of enemies clashing with United Nations forces, hearing the moans, the sound of the bugles, the sight of the horses, can ever say that God made human beings in his likeness to continue to fight and to kill and to destroy. I was wounded and left for dead and survived. And when I left Korea, I said to myself, I never want to return to this situation that brought so much misery and pain to me. But over the years, as I served in the Congress and visited the great leaders in South Korea, was able to see that the country that I left, that was reduced to ashes and hopelessness and pain, how it grew out of these ashes to become a symbol of democracy, freedom, economic expansion, and ally to the great United States of America. And so being able not to talk about war today, but 70 years later to talk about peace is so important. God did not create us, no matter what religion we have, or no religion at all, to destroy each other. And to think that all of you, over the years under the leadership of Mother Moon, have come to see whether your voices can be heard to the insanity that we go through with people destroying each other, has allowed me to believe that there is hope. Congratulations for your great work. I look forward to supporting the aims and goals of your mission. And as the late John Lewis would say, never give up, never give out, and never give in. God bless all of you, and thank you so much for this humbling opportunity.
Honorable Wenger, for your life of service to peace and human rights.
Thank you once again, Honorable Rangel. One more speaker is prepared to deliver his congratulatory address for us. This congratulatory address will be given by Honorable Christopher Hill, the former U.S. Ambassador to Korea, who has contributed greatly to diplomacy in Korea. Ambassador Christopher Hill served as a U.S. Ambassador to Korea from 2004 to 2005. On February 14, 2005, he was appointed as the head of the U.S. delegation to the six-party talks on the issue of North Korean nuclear weapons. And the same year later, he took office as the Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian Pacific Affairs. He also served as Ambassador to Poland, Macedonia, Special Envoy to Kosovo, and Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Southeast European Affairs in the National Security Council. He has particularly shown active support and sympathy for Dr. Moon's peace vision by taking part in the World Summit and various ILCs to support peace and diplomacy around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable Ambassador Christopher Hill.
First of all, let me say what a great honor it is for me to stand before this very distinguished audience consisting of so many famous people from so many different walks of life, and to talk about the origins, the beginning really, of the Korean War some 70 years ago. I'd especially like to thank UPF. I'd like to thank especially Dr. Moon for her tireless efforts in raising our consciousness about this, in talking about these issues. The Korean War is one of the most bitterly fought issues of the 20th century, one of the worst wars that happened in that century of war. And it's one whose ill effects continue to be felt in dividing brothers from sisters, wives from husbands, children from parents. It has really been one of the true tragedies of the 20th century, and in a very real sense, part of the unfinished business of that 20th century. The UPF, which has done so much to raise consciousness, to deal with this issue, to try to make sure the rest of the world understands it and understands the meaning of it, not just for Korean people, but also for people the world over. The Korean War, of course, engaged not only the people of Korea, but Americans were very much involved as we came to the aid of our allies, the Republic of Korea. It happened because of something that was more broadly felt, and that was a division of the entire world between a communist world and a non-communist world. The Korean people were really victimized by that division, and that victimization continues until today. But it's also, I think, to lay out the fact that the United States, the Republic of Korea, and so many of its friends and allies will not accept the idea of any kind of conflict that would somehow falsely bring the Korean people together, but would rather address the issues, the root causes really, of how this happened and how this must end. I think bringing people together in events such as this Rally of Hope, I think will have a real effect in terms of making people understand that this war could indeed happen anywhere where there is misunderstanding and mistrust. It could happen anywhere where there are people who are sometimes, there's no other word for it, people who are evil, who attack people who are not evil, who have a goodness of heart and a goodness of spirit. So I do hope as we look forward, and as we look forward through this meeting, that we can continue to move forward in our understanding of what needs to be done, of how we can overcome these divisions, how we can make a world that is safe for all of us, and a world that lowers its temperature, and a world that is able to deal with some of these really, really difficult problems. To be sure, diplomacy has to play an important role, but I think every person has a role to play in trying to bridge divisions, not just professional diplomats such as myself, not just politicians, not just economists, but all kinds of people need to come together as this group suggests and see what we can all do in our own different ways to deal with this very difficult issue. So thank you very much. It's been a great honor to address you, to be a part of this. I want to especially once again thank Dr. Moon for her absolutely tireless efforts over the years. She knows better than many of us know the tragedy of this war. So thank you very much, and I hope this will be a very successful meeting, and it will lead to other successful meetings, and ultimately lead to the unification of this very precious peninsula. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Christopher Hill, for your dedication to peace. 다시 한번 감동적인 축사 감사드립니다.
Rally of Hope.
It is now time for the keynote addresses. 7 distinguished leaders from nations that participated in the Korean War, as well as members of ISCP and IAPP, will give keynote addresses. 4 of the dignitaries will give their keynote addresses before the performance of gratitude by the Little Angels, and the remaining 3 keynote addresses will continue after part 1. Our first keynote address is by President Sahle Work Zahedi of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a nation with deep ties and alliances with South Korea, as a nation that participated in the Korean War. Her Excellency Zahedi is the first ever female president of Ethiopia, as well as the only female president in Africa. Before being elected as president, she was an experienced diplomat and served as special representatives of the UN Secretary General, and was appointed as a UN Under Secretary General and head of the UN office to the Africa Union. And she was named the 93rd most powerful woman in the world by Forbes magazine. Her Excellency Zahedi has happily prepared a keynote address for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Her Excellency President Sahle Work Zahedi of Ethiopia with a grateful round of applause.
It gives me great pleasure to take part in this rally of hope. This event cannot be more timely and appropriate in this unprecedented time of numerous complex challenges all around the world. Humanity and the planet are indeed facing existential threats. We're witnessing the global pandemic wreaking havoc on our health systems. Climate change and its devastating impacts are also ruining our environment. The global economy and trade have slowed down. All countries, big and small, are affected. Growing inequalities have created frustration and mistrust, thus leading to greater instability. None of these challenges can be solved in isolation. They are all connected, interconnected, and need global solutions through concerted efforts and cooperation among all the nations of the world. That's why there is a need to reinforce multilateralism. That's also why it's important that you all reaffirm commitment to the principles and purposes of the UN Charter, which embodies our hope for peace, development, and prosperity. These principles and purposes are more relevant today than they were 75 years ago, and they continue to be our guiding post as we aspire to sustain the peace and build a better future. Ethiopia is not only a founding member of the United Nations, but an ardent supporter of multilateralism and the principle of collective security enshrined in the United Nations Charter. It is because of this conviction that Ethiopia, together with 22 additional countries, responded to the call by the United Nations Security Council and deployed its forces under the Blue Helmets to restore peace and security when war broke at the Korean Peninsula 70 years ago. As we mark the 70th anniversary of the Korean War, we remember the brave men and women who fought and died during that conflict. We also pay tribute to their bravery and sacrifice in the furtherance of world peace. The historic contribution of the Ethiopian soldiers who participated in the Korean War certainly left an indelible mark in the relations between Ethiopia and the Republic of Korea. Their story will forever be remembered, and we need to keep the memory of their sacrifices alive for generations to come. The role of the brave Ethiopian soldiers played during the early days of the United Nations is testament to Ethiopia's unwavering commitment to the principle of collective security enshrined in the United Nations Charter. It is this commitment that Ethiopia continues to uphold to this day, and it is also this commitment that has made her the leading troop contributing country to the United Nations peacekeeping. Finally, in this rally of hope, let us promote a culture of peace and harmony around the world. Let us work to heal the broken trust that has fractured societies. Let us encourage facts and truth instead of hatred and bigotry. Let's also instill a sense of hope and future in our youth. Let us protect marginalized and vulnerable populations. And let us all strive to create fair, equitable, inclusive, sustainable, and resilient societies. I can only hope that these lofty objectives will inspire us to do more in order to overcome our current challenges and build a better future for our peoples. I thank you.
Your Excellencies, your speech inspired us and helped us to see a clear vision for peace based on our shared values. 감사합니다, 대통령님.
Thank you, Madam President. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in giving another round of applause to Her Excellency President Sahle-Work Zahedi for her moving keynote address. As we began the Rally of Hope, we had interviewed a veteran of the Kangyu Battalion. And the Kangyu Battalion were military units from the Imperial Ethiopian Army that participated in the Korean War. They are truly courageous heroes and legends of the Korean War. Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon is very familiar with the Kangyu Battalion, and she introduced us to their noble efforts on page 155 of her autobiography, Mother of Peace. Among the most meaningful of the Little Angels tours was when they visited each of the 22 nations that participated in the United Nations response during the Korean War. In 2010, to mark the 60th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War, we sent the Little Angels to perform for the war veterans of the 22 nations that had sent troops or humanitarian and medical aid. It was among the most meaningful of the Little Angels world tours. Over a period of 3 years, they visited each nation, offering a performance of gratitude in honor of the veterans. We in Korea had received extraordinary assistance for these nations in our hour of need, and we declared that it was time to give something back. Those who met still remember Korea vividly, and many said they had never ceased loving our country. Some Koreans at home criticized the tour because they were a private group and did not officially represent the government, but we represented the heart of the Korean people as well as God's heart. Ethiopia and the Republic of South Korea were the two African nations that sent troops. In the 1980s, when communists took over power in Ethiopia, they displayed all the Korean War veterans to a camp on the outskirts of Addis Ababa. In reality, that place was like a concentration camp. The veterans shared painful memories of how the regime had persecuted them and how they had to sell their medals to provide for their families. When they saw the Little Angels, they were moved to tears as they realized that the poor, ragged, divided nation of Korea was now a developed nation ready to thank them. The happy ending is that the Little Angels concerts brought the veterans' plight to the attention of the present government, which is now making up for its past mistreatment. Beloved leaders, there are no national borders when thanking veterans and veterans. It is because of the veterans of the Korean War who put their lives on the line that South Korea could become what it is today. I pray that today's concert of gratitude will give even a little comfort to the veterans from the Kangyu Battalion, and of course to all the veterans of the Korean War 7 years ago. It is now time for our second keynote address. Our second keynote address is former Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. The Right Honourable Stephen Harper served from 2006 to 2016 as the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada, a nation that participated in the Korean War. The Honourable Stephen Harper gave a keynote address during World Summit 2019 and also participated in World Summit 2020, as well as the first Rally of Hope for the realization of a heavenly unified Korea. In particular, during World Summit 2019, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon awarded the Right Honourable Harper with the International Summit Council for Peace Medal and is now working and supporting UPF's work worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Right Honourable Stephen Harper.
Merci beaucoup. Honorable High Office holders, past and present, distinguished participants from around the world, And of course, to our host, the Universal Peace Federation. Thank you for inviting me to join you once again for this, your third global Rally of Hope. This is occurring on a very special occasion. We're marking the 70th anniversary of the start of the Korean War. It's an anniversary that we commemorate with mixed emotions. On the one hand, the start of war is never something that we celebrate, even if those of us who are allies share no blame for the conflict. But the war left the Korean Peninsula divided, with the North locked in a terrible ordeal that endures to this day. Of course, there's also been much good to come out of that conflict. Against the early odds, the Allied intervention of 1950 preserved the light of freedom in the South, and it allowed a magnificent country to be built from that time forward. The Republic of Korea is today one of the most prosperous, most peaceful, and most progressive countries on the planet. Few nations have ever built so much from so little in so short a period of time. Canada was one of 16 members of the United Nations to come to the aid of the South during that war. I've had the opportunity on many occasions to meet both Canadian and Korean veterans of that conflict, the people who made all the achievements of modern Korea possible. Their average age today is 88. So let's use whatever opportunities remain to thank them from the bottom of our hearts for what they accomplished. It's also fitting that given Korea's history and its sacrifice, that this is the nation that would witness the birth of the Universal Peace Federation. Under your founder and our host, a proud citizen of Korea, Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon, this organization continues to keep hope alive, not only for the reconciliation and reunification of the Korean Peninsula, but for the reconciliation and reunification of peoples around the world. And this is a message we need now more than ever. The last time I spoke about the economic, financial, and political turmoil that I fear will be the ultimate result of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly given the lack of cooperation among nations today. As we enter 9 months of global recession, my fears have only grown stronger. The world still faces multiple lockdowns, restrictions, and quarantines, often without clear criteria or metrics, and largely without international coordination. But there are some hopeful signs. Treatments are improving, vaccines are being developed, and populations are gradually learning how to cope. And most notably, we've witnessed one of the most unifying developments of modern times. In the Middle East, nations long and profoundly divided have put aside their differences with the signing of the Abraham Accords. They've not only achieved an unprecedented peace, they've also demonstrated that faith and the common quest for reconciliation between man and God can be a great unifier of humanity. What a tremendous development, and what an extraordinary message. But it's one that I don't have to explain to you. For this is the message and the mission of the Universal Peace Federation, of your founder and of your followers the world over. And it's one that I'm so pleased to be sharing with you today. Continue to do what you do. Look to turn this crisis into opportunity. Work at all levels in all nations, with governments, with civil society, with business, academia, and faith organizations, for peace, justice, harmony, sustainability, and prosperity, for one family blessed by and under God. Thank you once again for inviting me. Take reasonable precautions, everyone, and be well. And God bless all of you in your important work.
Thank you to Right Honorable Stephen Harper for your wisdom and courage to inspire unity and cooperation between all nations.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving another round of applause to the Right Honorable Stephen Harper for his moving address. Next is our third keynote address. We have welcomed another special guest for our third keynote address. Our third speaker today is former Prime Minister Yves Le Terme of Belgium, a nation that participated in the Korean War. Honorable Yves Le Terme served as the 48th and 50th Prime Minister of Belgium from 2008 to 2011. During his time in office, he strove for political and economic development and worked hard to resolve conflicts between the French and Dutch-speaking regions of Belgium. 70 years ago, during the Korean War, Belgium sent more than 3,000 soldiers to protect Korean citizens and their freedom. Also, notably, in September 2010, Honorable Le Terme, as the incumbent Prime Minister, warmly welcomed the Little Angels during their visit to Belgium. Let us welcome His Excellency Yves Le Terme of Belgium to the podium.
Dear Dr. Hak Jae-han Moon, Excellencies, participants and viewers from around the world, ladies and gentlemen, dear hosts from the Universal Peace Federation. Thank you wholeheartedly for inviting me to join you today. It is indeed a real honor for me to speak to you at this Rally of Hope. Madam Dr. Moon, ladies and gentlemen, 70 years ago, my country, the Kingdom of Belgium, was one of those nations that engaged in the UN-led effort to defend freedom and to protect Korean citizens from the communist invasion. More than 3,000 volunteers Belgian soldiers joined in a battle that enabled our shared values to prevail. In Belgium since then, it has been a matter of collective pride to witness the tremendous development Korea has achieved to become not only a wealthy and prosperous nation, but also a leading advocate for freedom, for peace, for democracy and human dignity. It is today still our hope that these impressive achievements and the values that underpin them may soon flourish in the entire reunited Korean peninsula for the benefit of all Korean citizens. And for that reason, back in September 2010, it was, for me as the then Prime Minister, and for my compatriots, such an unforgettable experience to host a delegation of the Universal Peace Federation and of the world-class Little Angel Children's Dance Troupe and Choir in Brussels. Ladies and gentlemen, our admiration and gratitude also goes to you, Dr. Moon, and to the so important work that the Universal Peace Federation is doing. So all the efforts that you, Madam Moon, and your late husband have made and are achieving results through, all the good and crucial work that the Universal Peace Federation is carrying out day after day, is what makes the real difference, what brings lasting progress, and which today can bring back the hope we so much need in these dark and difficult times. The hope for citizens and societies, the hope for the values of peaceful coexistence, for international understanding, and for inclusive progress, respect, and human rights. Indeed, today, more than ever, over the last several decades, we need an injection of courage, an injection of hope, of leadership, of understanding beyond borders, to face up to and to overcome the daunting challenges of our time. Because indeed, the challenges we are facing are both numerous and extremely demanding. This Rally of Hope is taking place at a time when, in all parts of the world, we are facing the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. This virus hits and destroys our health. It hits and destroys our economies, and it hits and destroys the very essence of our collective and personal interactions. Ladies and gentlemen, the virus knows no borders, so the effective fight against it shouldn't either. But furthermore, the present focus on COVID-19 should not hide the global challenges we already were confronted with before. These have become even more daunting since last spring. The potentially disastrous effects of climate change, global warming, and our mishandling of nature, the economic turmoil and downturn, the rise of extremism and violent terrorism, exacerbated racial and religious antagonism, conflict and tension between nations, the unraveling of crucially important multilateral institutions that brought us so much progress and so often prevented war and violence. All these mutually reinforcing challenges confront us with the urgent need for effective action. And all these challenges have in common that they can only be overcome by more international understanding and more closely working together. We indeed need more cooperation in engineering the so much needed vaccine, in bringing help and relief to the victims, especially in the poorer parts of the world, and in ensuring access to care and cure for all. We surely can effectively overcome COVID-19 if we only join forces. And we can resume the path of economic and social progress if we resist populism, if we resist protectionism, if we resist selfishness. These threats to a peaceful world and to continued progress have been flourishing for too long and in too many places without sufficient reaction, without being countered. Today, together with all people of goodwill, including not least the newly elected US leadership, we have to stand up and to speak out loudly against the so-called simple solutions. Simple solutions fueled by populism and demagoguery. Slogan and simplistic solutions that are just bringing deadlock, increasing difficulties, and exacerbating scapegoating and antagonism. Today, together with all people that stand for freedom and cooperation, we have to make clear that protectionism and unfair barriers for transborder trade and investment only lead to a loss of opportunities and block the elevator to progress for developing countries. Today, we have to say loudly that peace is much more than the mere absence of war, that we should actively promote fairness, security and tolerance, and that war never brings lasting, sustainable solutions to conflict. This is so much needed action by all citizens of goodwill. It is just an endeavor that cannot be left to the political world alone. Indeed, our more horizontal, chaotic, and fragmented world today needs positive impulses from all ordinary citizens, from private organizations, from businesses, and from all the positive societal forces of human family. It is more than ever needed to offer platforms for common reflection, real dialogue and respectful inclusive action, both wherever we ourselves are located and at a global level. We indeed need to increase our efforts to bring people together, to federate. And that is exactly what UPF does through these rallies of hope. So let me thus conclude by commending you for all this. Your work is important, your work is crucial, your work is the pathway to a better future, a beacon of hope in these darkest times. Thank you very much for your attention.
For your message and your concern for the peaceful reunification of Korea. 수상님 감사합니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me once again in giving a round of applause to former Prime Minister Yves Le Terme for his keynote address. Next, our fourth keynote address will be offered by the Speaker of the Colombian Chamber of Representatives, Germán Alcides Blanco Alvarez. Colombia was the sole Latin American nation to participate in the Korean War. Speaker Alvarez was a professor of law at the University of Latin America before he entered politics as a City Council member from 2001 to 2007. He was elected as a member of the Chamber of Representatives to 2010 and worked passionately in his position. He became Deputy Speaker in 2013 and Speaker in June 20th of this year. He has been an exemplary Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives, and he worked together with IAPP and has been an active supporter of UPF's work and Dr. Moon's vision of peace. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Speaker Germán Blanco. Good morning, everyone. My name is Germán Blanco, President of the
Colombia, órgano legislativo, máxima institución creadora de leyes en la República Presidencialista de Colombia. Quiero participar de este rally de la esperanza de común acuerdo con la Asamblea para la Paz Mundial, la Federación para la Paz Mundial, de la que he podido también participar de manera directa en Corea del Sur,
Today's rally shows the profound importance and meaning peace between North and South Korea would have for today's world. This importance is derived from Korea's history. In the 1950s, war broke out, leading to the great tragedy that is the separation of Korea into North and South. In these circumstances, only one Latin American country, the nation of Colombia, sent troops with the fundamental mission of bringing peace and stability in the peninsula. Yes, that nation was Colombia. Colombia deployed a battalion, and this important action has forged an eternal link with the history of South Korea. Since then, we have not only maintained diplomatic relations, but also expanded our relationship to include commerce, culture, sports, and so on. Since the 1950s, great efforts have been made to build stronger ties with both Koreas by signing agreements and treaties, especially in the last decade. However, these efforts could not materialize quickly enough to bring the intended benefits, fundamentally due to the North Korean government's way of governing, leading to growing frustration. The involvement of global superpowers like the United States is favorable for the pursuit of realizing peace. Denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is fundamental. This guarantees a stable and lasting peace, not only for that region of the world, but for the whole world. Today's Rally of Hope, hosted by the Universal Peace Federation, will definitely see the materialization of important initiatives. The first of these is a shared identity, where the two Koreas to be unified again. They would once again share the same cultural identity, the same language, and the same idioms. This would have a profound meaning for the world. Furthermore, a unified Korea carries tremendous potential in the areas of science, the arts, literature, culture, and sports. The world knows that a unified Korea would be one of the major powers in the region and in the world in all these areas. It is here that the Rally of Hope can help bring to fruition efforts aimed at unification and a common identity. Despite global support, the two Koreas have remained divided for several decades. Nevertheless, everywhere around the world, we will not give up on the process of reunification. Here in Colombia, we will continue to support reunification and the development of the common points the two Koreas have shared for several decades. Once the entire world sees that they share the same identity and identify themselves with the same language, the world will recognize that the two Koreas are brothers who can live together peacefully. Thank you very much, President, for your message of peace and unity. Let us give another round of applause to Honorable Herman Blanco Alvarez. Just a moment ago, from South America, I received a message,
저희들에게는
and
잘 알려지지 않았을 수도
this is
있는데
not well
수리난이라는
known,
나라가
but
있는데
in the nation of
네덜란드
Suriname,
군으로 그 100명이
they
그
sent
70년 전 한국
100
전쟁에 참전을
troops
했습니다.
to the Korean
그
War
수리남에서도
under the
지금
flag of the
이 대회가
Netherlands. And
오늘의
in
이 대회가
Suriname as
생중계가
well,
되고 있고요.
today's event is
안데스
being
산맥이나
broadcast
볼리비아
live.
그 높은
And
고지에서도
also in the
지금 시간이
Andes
다름에도
region in
불구하고
Bolivia,
한국의
even
이
though the
시간과
time may
함께
be
호흡을
different,
하면서
everyone is
역사적인 이
watching
대회를
today's
기념해주고
rally
있습니다.
through live
존경하는 각국
broadcast.
정상 및 내외 귀빈
Respected
그리고 사랑하는
excellencies, beloved
축복가정
blessed families,
평화대사 여러분,
ambassadors for peace,
이제
ladies
신통일
and
세계
gentlemen.
안착을 위한
Now is the
희망전진
time to
대회의
welcome the host
주최자이신
of this
한학자
third rally
총재님,
of hope for the
평화의 어머니
realization of a
독생녀
heavenly
참 어머님을
unified
모시고
world, the Mother
특별
of
연설을
Peace,
듣는
Dr.
시간을
Hak Jahan
갖도록
Moon,
하겠습니다.
to deliver her
한학자
special address.
총재님께서는 일생을 통해
Dr. Moon
항구적인
has
세계
devoted
평화를
her
위해
life, a life of
천사랑의
true
헌신의
love,
삶을
to realizing
살아오고
a
있습니다.
world of lasting
동에서
peace.
서로
Despite the
남에서 북으로
difficulties of moving
지구
around the
곳곳을
world,
다니며 입안이
dealing
허물고
with various
다리가
physical
붓고
challenges,
서 있을
Dr.
수
Hak
있지
Jahan
않는
Moon's
어려움이
will to
있었음에도
realize a world
불구하고
of lasting peace
항구적인
and
평화
to
이상
overcome
세계
the barriers
실현을
of
위한
national borders,
총재님의
race, and religion
헌신적인 삶을
has led her to be
국경,
recognized as
민족,
Mother
종교를
of
넘어
Peace by
수많은
numerous
정치,
politicians,
종교 지도자들에게
religious leaders,
평화의
and civil
어머니로
society
불림받게 되셨습니다.
leaders.
여러분,
Ladies and
평화의
gentlemen,
어머니,
please
한학자
rise
총재님,
and
참
join me in
어머님을
welcoming Dr. Hak
모시도록
Jahan Moon,
하겠습니다.
the Mother of Peace, with a warm round of applause.
여러분, 오늘 희망전진대회에서 특별
Ladies and
연설을 해주시기 위해
gentlemen,
입장하신
Dr. Hak Jahan
한학자
Moon has
총재님 참
come
어머니께
to
큰
give a
환영과
special
감사의
address.
박수를
Please join
부탁드리겠습니다.
me in welcoming Dr. Hak Jahan Moon with a warm round of applause.
이제 한학자 총재님께서
Now, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon will offer flowers to thank all of the Korean War veterans and also to thank all of the heroes of the Korean War. Let us give another round of applause to Dr. Hak Jahan Moon.
사랑하는
Beloved
전 세계 각계 지도자 여러분,
leaders from around the world,
반갑습니다.
I'm very pleased to meet you.
오늘날
Today,
세계 도처에서
all around the world,
일어나고 있는
various
예기치 못하는
unexpected and unforeseen challenges and problems
코로나
are
바이러스
erupting.
팬데믹으로 인해서
And due to the COVID-19
세계
pandemic,
도처에서
all around the world,
경제적
various challenges in the realms of
이루
politics,
말할 수
the
없는
economy, and even religious
앞이 보이지
strife
않는
are happening.
현실이
The reality
전개되고
is
있습니다.
that it is difficult to forecast what the future holds for humanity at this point.
인간의
Until now,
노력으로는
human
한계가
efforts
왔다는 것을
have been
모두 느끼고 있을 것입니다.
made to solve these problems, but we can see the limitations
그러나 우리는
of human efforts alone.
지금 이 시점에서
At this point,
이
all of
모든
us
문제들을 해결하고
know that it is
밝은
possible to
미래를 볼
solve
수 있는
these problems and look to a bright future.
그 중심에
And the key to achieving
창조주
this
하나님을
beautiful future
모시는 운동이 일어나야
is
할
to
것입니다.
recognize and to welcome our Creator, God, the Heavenly Parent, into our lives.
창조주께서는
The Creator
아름다운 지구를 창조하시고
built a beautiful earth
인간과
for
함께
humanity, and the Creator's wish
지상에서
was to live in an ideal
천국의
world,
삶을 사다
a kingdom of heaven on
영원한
earth, so that after living their
세계까지
earthly life, human beings
인류와
could ascend to the spirit
함께
world and live in
살고자
bliss and
준비하셨습니다.
harmony with the Creator.
그 말은
In other words,
창조주 하나님은
God the
인류의
Creator is
부모라는
the
말입니다.
heavenly parent of humanity.
인간의 타락은
The fall
부모와
of the human
관계없는
ancestors
자리에
severed the relationship
처해진
of parent
것이
and child between
오늘의
God and human
현실입니다.
beings. And human beings stand as
지금까지 하늘은
orphans. This is the sad
잃어버린
reality of today's world.
자녀를 찾아
And
나오시는
in order to restore
구원섭리
and
역사를
find the
해
long-lost
오셨습니다.
children, God has initiated
그리하여
the long history of the providence of
그와
salvation,
같은 인류 앞에
so that the
메시아
orphaned
사상을
humanity could be restored.
교육해 나왔습니다.
That was
그것이
the origin
성경에서
of the
말하는
messianic
6,000년
ideology,
인류
and this
역사입니다.
is the 6,000-year history of humanity
2000년
mentioned
전
in the Bible.
이스라엘
2,000 years
민족을
ago,
통해서
through the people
그
of
뜻을
Israel,
이루려 하셨으나
God wished to
예수
accomplish
그리스도의
this
십자가로
will.
말미암아
However, due to the
이루어지지 못했습니다.
crucifixion of Jesus Christ, this will was
예수님은
frustrated.
다시
Jesus
오마
Christ prophesied
다시
that he
와서는
would come
어린
again
양 잔치를
and
한다
come again
했습니다.
to host the marriage wedding of the Lamb.
기독교 역사는
The history of Christianity
사실 예수님의
has been
본질을 몰랐습니다.
one that
2000년
did not
내려오면서
fully reveal
많은
the essence
문제를
of Jesus.
만들어냈습니다.
It is true that various setbacks and issues happened
그러나
throughout
하늘은
Christianity's history.
구원 섭리를
However, heaven
늦출 수 없었습니다.
could not postpone once again heaven's providence.
6,000년 만에
For the first time in 6,000 years,
하늘은
heaven
섭리의 완성을 가져올 수 있는
really worked to bring about the fulfillment of the providence by sending the only begotten daughter to the Korean peninsula.
이 말은
In other words,
창조주
the Creator
하나님의 꿈이 실현될 수 있는
is the Korean peninsula
인류의
is
소원을 이룰 수
the
있는
place where heaven's will, where humanity's wish can be realized.
일기
Heavenly, the winds of heavenly fortune have been blowing on the Korean peninsula. In the 1950s, the environment of Korea
1945년에 해방과
was truly miserable. Korea was liberated in 1945 and the Korean War erupted in 1950.
하늘은
Heaven
기다려온 6,000년의 오랜 기다림 가운데
waited for 6,000 long years and the only begotten daughter born for the first time in 6,000 years, needed to be protected.
남과 북이 민주화 공산으로 갈리면서
As the Korean peninsula was divided into the communist north and the democratic south, the democratic government in South Korea was not yet ready to overcome a North Korean invasion. And in these circumstances, the Korean War broke out. Heaven could no longer delay the autumn of the providence. How is it possible that a tiny nation, unknown to the rest of the world, could benefit from the participation and protection of 16 UN member nations? How incredible it is that the 16 member UN nations sent their gallant and valiant young soldiers, many of them in their teens and 20s, to come and protect Korea's freedom and democracy. The age of these gallant soldiers was a time when they were the purest and the most courageous. The young men and women who came to aid Korea's freedom and democracy were truly the children of God. What wind of the providence brought them here to Korea? These young veterans came to Korea's help to protect peace, to protect freedom in Korea. We can see through this that God the Creator is working with us. Now, we cannot forget the blood that these veterans shed on the battlefield. I proclaimed the advent of true parents. This has been the long-awaited and cherished wish of humanity and heaven. The warriors who shed blood on the battlefront will eternally be remembered in history. They are the brave heroes of God's providence. As fallen humanity, the advent of true parents is salvific. Without receiving the blessing of true parents, humanity cannot return to Heavenly Parents' bosom. And humanity and heaven have waited for 6,000 years for this moment. However, the Christianity, who should become a foundation of support for true parents, did not fully embrace true parents, and as a result, true parents spent 60 years working throughout the world so that young, righteous leaders from around the world can really reveal heaven's secrets to the world. The time has come to reveal heaven's secrets to the world. Now, we can no longer stay idle or stop in our tracks.
1950년에
In 1950, all of the war veterans who participated in the Korean War are now aged, and all those who are still alive today are in their late 80s and 90s. Their wish was a world of peace. Their wish was a unified Korea. However, when we look at all of the various challenges facing today's world, we can see that these problems are not limited to the Korean Peninsula. And to solve these problems requires recognizing that God is our heavenly parent and that God should be the center of our lives and our initiatives. When all the people around the world, when all nations around the world can come together as one family under the heavenly parent, when we stand in the position of one family as brothers and sisters around the world, we can solve the problems afflicting today's world. And just as God, our heavenly parent, teaches us, when the children follow the heavenly parent's guidance, we can fulfill our responsibility before heavenly parent who has waited for 6,000 long years, and for humanity who has stood in the position of orphans for 6,000 years. They have finally met true parents, and the time has come to become filial sons and daughters by attending heavenly parent and true parents on earth, and realize the kingdom of heaven on earth that heaven and humanity has wished by singing and celebrating in this kingdom of heaven on earth. What a beautiful, what a blessed, what a incredible moment of grace for all of us. That is why I, before it is too late, I would like to thank the 16 UN member nations who sent troops to Korea, but I also wish to thank all of the nations that provided medical aid, material support to all of these 63 nations. I know that in the majority of the 16 nations, there are memorials that have been built already. However, there is not all nations have full registries of all the veterans of the Korean War. And I wish to remember the names of each and every veteran. I wish that posterity can remember forever the name of each veteran. And also, I wish that posterity can take inspiration from these veterans. And in nations where there are no memorials, I would like to initiate a project where the Universal Peace Federation builds memorials in each of these nations. That is my offering and pledge to you today. Furthermore, I have dedicated my life to the sake of world peace. I have founded various organizations, and now I would like to also launch the International Association of Artists for Peace. In the past, Christian culture flourished and prepared for the second advent of the Messiah. And mostly centering on the European continent, a beautiful culture developed centering on the second advent of the Messiah. And even now, people around the world love European arts and culture. And that culture had as its focus the Messiah and the returning Lord. However, the culture that I'm speaking about now centers on the 6,000-year history of our heavenly parent. We will build a culture of gratitude, of peace and harmony, to encourage sons and daughters around the world who are unfilial to truly connect with Heavenly Parent, and also to return love, gratitude to Heavenly Parent, to create a transformation of culture into a culture of heart, a culture of living for the sake of others that will shine brightly for eons throughout the world. It is through arts and culture that we can bring unity among people around the world. It is one of the shortcuts to unity around the world. Humanity is facing rising challenges. The human population is increasing, and humanity's future must be preserved. That is why it is important to preserve the earth for future generations. The earth today is being polluted. Just in 2020, we can see various national cataclysms and calamities, forest fires, hurricanes and typhoons destroying entire areas. Such issues cannot idly be pushed to the side. We cannot ignore these problems. We cannot act irresponsibly with regards to the earth, because the earth is not just ours. The earth should be a beautiful place that we can bequeath to future generations. And more than anything else, we need to stop the destruction of the environment, because God originally created the earth for the sake of human beings. It is now time for us to be good stewards of the earth and restore it to a pristine state for the future, for the sake of future generations. Unless we take swift action, there will be difficulties in bequeathing a pristine earth to future generations. And these should not end simply with words or slogans. We stand at an important crossroads. And that is why let us all speak with one voice. And the way to solving these problems in unity and harmony is by welcoming God as the Heavenly Parent in our lives and move as one in accordance with Heavenly Parent's guidance, and form one family of humanity by becoming true sons and daughters who practice living for the sake of others. We are filled with hope because heaven is working with us. We are called to really thank heaven for the many depths of gratitude we owe heaven, and we cannot pass on what we can accomplish in our generation to future generations. That is why today,
이 대회는
this rally of hope
70년 전
reminds me
이 한반도를 통해서
of 70 years ago when the Korean Peninsula saw the outbreak of a terrible war,
세계가
and heaven mobilized forces around the world
이 한국의
to come and protect democracy and freedom in Korea. And it is thanks to the gallant and valiant efforts of these war veterans that today's Korea is possible.
한 예를 보더라도
Looking at this clear example of
이제 오늘
heaven's intervention,
세계 인류가 다 함께
we can see that the time has come for humanity to come together in unity and harmony and receive true parents' blessing and receive the recognition of heaven as God's beloved sons and daughters. This is the only path that humanity can usher in a future filled with hope and happiness. This is my earnest message. This is my message to you and to the future. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in offering another round of applause to Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon for her inspiring message. And now, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon will take her seat as we prepare for the concert of gratitude by the Little Angels. And today, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon mentioned that Korea will not forget its blessing, the blessing it received when it was protected 70 years ago. And it is not just to the 16 UN nations, but also to all nations that provided material support. We will remember all of the nations that supported Korea by building memorials in all of these nations. Ladies and gentlemen, our founder, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, has been advancing the realization of a world of peace and unity through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. Thank you very much, distinguished dignitaries. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Today, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon gave a moving address, and in her address she mentioned that all nations that participated in the Korean War that do not have memorials will have memorials built through UPF, and also people around the world we are going to build an online memorial as well. And beginning today, we prepared this special memorial, and that is why we would like to give you a brief introduction of what the online memorial looks like. Korea owes a big debt of gratitude to the world. Until now, we could not properly thank the world. Now the time has come for this nation, for this people, to fulfill its responsibility to the world. In 2020, today on November 2020, an online memorial will be opened. And this is a place for you to visit the various memorials around the world. You can offer messages of gratitude. You can share social media messages. And also you can see the various contents of the Little Angels tour 10 years ago. Please Don't forget to log in to rememberkrwar.org. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we would like to have a special concert by the Little Angels. This is a concert of gratitude to thank the nations that supported Korea during the outbreak of the Korean War. 10 years ago, the Little Angels toured 22 nations around the world and conveyed their hearts of gratitude to really thank all of the Korean War veterans. They really conveyed the heart of gratitude we all have for one another. And now the Little Angels have prepared a special performance to thank once again all of the nations who supported Korea. And also, the Little Angels will express their heart of hope for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, a peninsula that remains divided 70 years after the outbreak of the war. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Little Angels as we begin this special concert of gratitude.
내 집에는
너무도 멋진 천상의 목소리와 몸짓이 같은데 정말 감동적인 공연을 해준 우리 팬들에게 다시 한번 여러분 감사의 박수를
Let us give
보내주시면
another round of
좋겠습니다.
applause to thank the little angels, please. And before we began today's event, we really had many videos and we had an interview. And during the interview, the veteran mentioned that he was grateful to see the little angels' smiles and dances. And as we saw the dances and the moves of the little angels, we really are moved once again. We want to see more of the little angels, but we have 3 keynote addresses, and then we'll have part 2 of the concert. Our 5th keynote address will be offered by His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit, the first president of South Sudan. His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit has engaged in many peace activities in South Sudan and also in North Sudan. Some time ago, the Pope invited the leaders of Sudan that were torn apart by civil war and beseeched them to achieve peace and even kiss their feet. This scene became very famous. It showed the world the power of peace. In Sudan, where internal strife never ceased after the World War due to religious and cultural differences, President Kiir was a central figure in really bringing about peace among the different organizations, and also he signed a peace treaty with the government at the time. And in 2011, he assumed office as the president of the Republic of Sudan, South Sudan. And though there were several internal problems, he has been instrumental in really bringing together a peace agreement between Sudan and other insurgent forces. And also, Dr. Hak Ja Han-moon and the Universal Peace Federation played an important role in bringing this peace agreement, and the President wishes to express his gratitude by giving a keynote address at today's rally. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit with a warm round of applause.
Distinguished heads of states, religious leaders, and the leadership of the Universal Peace Federation International, with its partners organizations who organized this rally. I greet you in the name of my country, the Republic of South Sudan, and its people. Let me begin by thanking UPF International for this opportunity to speak at this important event, the Rally of Hope. My participation here is an honor to the people of South Sudan who wholeheartedly supported my work for peace, both internally and in our sisterly country, the Sudan. As rightly stated in the invitation letter, for this event, this Rally of Hope allows us to collectively think about challenges facing our desire to build a human family. And equally, it is an opportunity to explore ways of achieving greater solidarity among all peoples. For us in South Sudan, despite the challenges facing us, we view our commitment to achieving total peace in our country and in our region as our modest contribution to global stability. We hope these modest steps we have taken will slowly but surely contribute to global stability and in the process will foster greater solidarity among all the peoples. Working for peace is not an easy task, nor is peace itself something that can be achieved overnight. Peace to those who desire it means making painful decisions. It means having endurance to deal with many challenges that prevent its quick realization. And it means having tolerance to hear the other side. In my work for peace, I have always been guided by my people's expectations. The weight of their expectations has often compelled me to make very painful concessions in order to break many locked gems in our peace negotiations. I believe that as leaders, we should all strive to do the right thing for the sake of peace, because peace is a key ingredient in the solution of other problems facing humanity. Without peace, we cannot mitigate climate change. We cannot fight COVID-19 pandemic, or even think of addressing global poverty. The environment of perpetual conflict is the prime enemy of human progress. We all know that war again drains both material and human resources. It diverts attention away from pressing national priorities, and it prevents countries from achieving their potential. Let us all eradicate our efforts towards achieving a peaceful world by uniting against war. Thank you all for listening to my brief remarks, and may God bless you all.
Now, our final speaker will take the podium. The seventh keynote address will be given by His Excellency Mario Antonio Ponce Lopez, President of the Legislative Assembly of El Salvador in Latin America, which was one of the countries that sent supplies to Korea during the war. In 2002, he entered the political world after being elected as a member of the Assembly. Since then, he has served in various committees, and he was elected as President of the Legislative Assembly in November of 2019. From 2000, he has served as an ambassador of UPF, and he, in particular, has been working in the area of IAPP and supporting Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon's work for peace in America. Let us welcome His Excellency Maria Ponce of the Legislative Assembly of El Salvador with a warm round of applause.
Agradezco a la Fundación MON, a través de la Madre MON, por invitarme a esta cumbre mundial, denominada Rally por la Esperanza y la Paz, espacio internacional propicio para abordar la problemática mundial y el diálogo por la paz. Nos reúne en esta tercera ocasión una agenda de debate para el análisis de los graves problemas que nos aquejan como naciones independientes en un sistema globalizado. En esta cumbre,
This summit should be an expression of global consciousness among democratic nations that understand their own ills and the ills of others. Therefore, the call on free democratic nations of the world should be a call to solidarity. Respected participants, we Salvadorans are living at a time of deep transformation as a result of a successful peace process. We have given an institutional political direction to our country. With the help of the good offices of the United Nations, we have been the artisans of peace in El Salvador, convinced that the only possibility of overcoming the profound differences that separated us was to face them squarely and with determination.
Era asumirlas de manera directa y con determinación.
Although our peace process has been imperfect, we have shown the world that the solution to political crisis and internal armed conflicts is dialogue and finding agreement among brothers. Now, having overcome such a bloody and heartbreaking stage in the political and institutional life of our country, we can walk in peace, freedom, and a constitutional status of being under the rule of law. Holding tight to the law, we are certain that ideas will be fought with ideas, not with bullets or cannons. Therefore, we have offered and will continue to offer our experience in dialogue and empathy to ease conflicts around the world in order to re-establish in our land a strong and lasting culture of peace and true reconciliation among all people.
De una verdadera reconciliación entre los seres humanos.
Recalling the 70th anniversary of the Korean War, I genuinely hope for the establishment of a firm and sustainable peace agreement through dialogue and negotiation, leading to a peaceful and definitive reconciliation of inter-Korean security disputes affecting the region and the entire world. My appreciation especially goes to Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon for her tireless efforts to promote peace, which is an essential premise to achieve absolute peace and reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula through the will and determination of the Korean people. Dear friends, climate change is a matter of national and global security concern. Increased vulnerability causes conflict and insecurity in many countries. It is therefore important to develop a peace-building agenda addressing the impact of climate change and adaptation to the effects of climate change. Any successful peace process must include security strategies along with climate change mitigation and adaptation programs. Ladies and gentlemen, we're convinced that the democratic strengthening of societies requires free, independent institutions capable of responding to local needs and realities, to actively contribute to social cohesion and the law. Understanding that we currently have tools we never had before for the development of our countries, I am optimistic that we will continue to work to meet the aspirations that we have set for ourselves, to inspire our people, to provide success stories and examples for a better world. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in offering another round of applause to His Excellency Mario Ponce, President of the Legislative Assembly of El Salvador. Ladies and gentlemen, and now we will begin the second part of the Little Angels Concert of Gratitude. And this time they have prepared various beautiful traditional Korean songs. They have a wedding day dance, a drum dance, a medley of folk songs from all the different regions around the world. And this special concert of gratitude by the Little Angels really expresses our wish for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Let us give another round of applause to the Little Angels.
노래는 평화를 향한 기도입니다.
Our prayers for
춤은
peace,
신통의
dances
세계를 향한
are our small steps towards the realization of a heavenly unified
2010년
world.
60년 전 입었던 은혜를
10
받기
years
위해
ago,
시작된
the Little
4차에
Angels
걸친
toured the
리천젤스의
world,
세계 순회
visiting
공연
22 nations on
6.25
4
전쟁
occasions
60주년
to
세계 순회
thank
공연의
the
10주년이 되는 올해
nations that came to
2020년도에도
support Korea during the
구원의
Korean
행렬은
War.
이어져
And today,
노병이
10
된
years later,
수많은
we
한국전
continue
천병용사들과
to remember the sacrifices of the Korean War veterans and their families. Korea does not forget the great blessing it received. Concert of Gratitude by the Little Angels.
2010년 6월 6일부터
In
2011년 5월
2010,
14일까지
for 5
140여일간
months,
펼쳐졌던 순회
the
여정.
Little Angels toured
우리
the world
역사에
over
일찍이 없었던 6.25 유엔
148
참전국
days,
순회 공연은
and they toured all the
문선명
different
총재와 한학자
nations
총재께서
that came
순회 비용을
to help Korea
개척하심으로써
during the Korean War. And this was possible through the gift of $10 million
태극기를 품고
by
세계 무대로 향한
Reverend
어린
Moon and Dr.
천사들.
Hak Ja-han Moon.
한
The
사람이
young
춤추고
angels
노래하듯
went around the
모든
world
혼과
singing and
정성을
dancing,
담아
conveying the
무대에서
heart of
대한민국을
gratitude,
구해준 참전
really
용사들에
conveying
대한
the
고마움.
gratitude of the Korean people to all of the nations around the world.
1950, you came to help our country of Korea. Today, we have come to give you a big thank you.
꼬마 신랑의 천진난만한
And
얼굴에 웃음짓.
the beautiful little angels brought smiles and laughter to the participants,
뜻도 모르는
but
아리랑
also
노랫소리,
moved the hearts of all the participants singing Arirang together.
화려한 부채춤 앞에
And the beautiful fan dance captivated all of the participants, and also all of the participants smiled looking at the different dances. The performance of the Little Angels from a nation in the East, unknown to the rest of the world 70 years ago, moved the hearts of the participants.
The Little Angels were beautiful, and they brought to our audience the sense of love that exists between our two countries, and we're very, very, very thankful that we were able to see them today.
춤과 노래로 평화를 이야기하고
And the Little Angels spoke of peace through dance and song, and this beautiful concert of peace and gratitude was really unprecedented in history.
이 땅 위에 평화를 위해 살다간 참전 용사.
All the Korean War veterans who gave their lives for the sake of peace, to preserve freedom and peace in Korea. The Little Angels paid their respects to all of the veterans and their families, and also all of the heroes who had already ascended. To the veterans still alive, to the elderly and veterans, and also to their families, the angels conveyed gratitude. We are so happy and grateful to have been able to support the preservation of freedom and peace in Korea. Going beyond the Korean Peninsula, the Little Angels have been working to help build a lasting world of peace. And today, the Little Angels once again convey their heart of gratitude to all of you, especially to the Korean War veterans. We hope that through this small concert of gratitude, we can really once again thank you and help the blossoms of eternal peace spread throughout the world. Your sacrifices cannot be embodied in words. Once again, we bow in reverence and gratitude to you. Korea will never forget its blessing. Thank you.
감동적인 멋진 봉헌 공연을 해주는 리처 앤드레스 예술단에게 여러분 다시 한번 뜨거운 감사의 박수를 부탁드리겠습니다. 윤회를 잊지 않는 대한민국, 신통일 한국, 신통일 세계로 한국전쟁 70주년을 기념해
Heavenly Unified Korea to a Heavenly Unified World, and the little angels will now offer special bouquets of flowers to all of the representatives of the different nations, as well as the Korean War veterans. Now, the various members of the diplomatic corps of Korea, as well as Korean War veterans, will make their way to the stage to receive special bouquets of flowers and tokens of gratitude by the little angels. With an unchanging heart, 70 years ago, we will always remember the love, we will always remember the sacrifices that brought you to come and defend the freedom and the democracy of Korea. The little angels are offering flowers to express our gratitude. Let us give another round of applause to all of the representatives of the various nations that came to support Korea, and also to all of the surviving Korean War veterans currently being brought on stage. True gratitude is to always express our wish for unity, the realization of unity. And now, the host of today's event, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, True Mother, will now come on stage, and all of the leaders around the world will all come together to wish, to express our earnest wish for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We will end today's rally by singing Our Wish is for Unity. Let us sing the song of unity together. Let us welcome Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon once again with a warm round of applause. Let us all sing together the song of unity.
Holy
오늘 우리는 한국전쟁 70주년을 기념한 희망전진대회를 통해 신통일 한국과 그리고 신통일
anniversary
세계
of the
안착을
outbreak of the
위한
Korean
또
War,
다른
but also
희망의 위대한
we have really shown the power of hope to realize a
종교,
unified
인종, 문화가 다르다 할지라도
Korea, but also a unified world of peace. Through interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values, we can march together in unison for the sake of peace. Once again, let us thank Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, the Mother of Peace, for hosting us today. And now, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon will now recede from the stage. Thank you. Beloved leaders from around the world, it is my hope that at the next 4th Rally of Hope we can join our voices together and we will have a greater voice that can echo around the world. With these words, we conclude the 3rd Rally of Hope for the realization of a heavenly unified world and performance of gratitude by the Little Angels for participant nations in commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the Korean War. Thank you, everyone. Please be safe, and thank you for joining today's program. Thank you very much.